So today we're going to take a look inside the psychological framework of one of the most talked about figures of our time. We're diving into the book Inside a Leader's Mind, Trump by Chris Bierviv, which tries to map out a different way of understanding it all. All right, so the book kicks off with this really big question. After all the headlines, the investigations, even felony convictions, why does nothing seem to stick? The author's whole point is that our moral outrage, as justified as it might feel, has been pretty much useless as a strategy. So the book suggests a totally different approach. It says, hey, what if we stop trying to just condemn and start trying to understand the mechanics of what's happening? And this quote really sums it up. Understanding a tornado doesn't mean you're pro-tornado. The idea is that this isn't about approval. It's about self-defense. It's about playing chess and thinking a few moves ahead instead of just, cheerleading from the sidelines. Okay, so how do we actually start to dig deeper? Well, the book lays out its core method, which it says is all about getting past the day-to-day political drama and into something much deeper. And the main idea here, the central metaphor, is actually pretty cool: psychological archaeology. Think about it like an archaeological dig, but instead of digging into the earth, you're digging into a person's mind. The goal is to excavate all the different layers of their personality, going all the way back in time to see how this 79-year-old man was really formed by what happened to him as a little kid. So when you start this dig, what the book claims you find at the very core is this fixed code. It's like a computer's operating system that got installed when he was very young and, the book argues, has never been updated since. So what powers this operating system? According to the book, it all runs on one thing: narcissistic supply. Basically, a constant, desperate need for validation from the outside world. And here's the key part. It doesn't matter if that attention is good or bad. Praise, hatred, it's all the same fuel. The only thing that truly matters is the intensity. The only real kryptonite? Being ignored. And this is where it gets really specific. The book breaks this whole operating system down into 4 main functions. First, that constant hunt for narcissistic supply. Second, a need to dominate every single interaction, to always be the top dog. Third, what it calls a vengeance algorithm. Every little slight gets filed away and has to be paid back. And finally, the loyalty trap, which demands total, one-way loyalty from everyone. The book's big claim is that you can trace almost everything he does back to one of these 4 core drives. But where in the world did this source code even come from? Well, to answer that, we have to grab our shovels and join the book on that archaeological dig into the past, to the events that it claims built the man. And this is what the dig uncovers. The book lays out this timeline of what it calls formative wounds, these key traumas. And the order here, it argues, is absolutely crucial. You have the absence of his mother, the cruelty of his father, being sent away as a kid, and then watching his older brother get torn down. Each one of these events, the theory goes, just layered on top of the last, building the psychological structure we see today. The book really zeroes in on one specific moment, a really critical one. When he was just 2.5 years old, his mom, Marianne, had a medical emergency and was in the hospital for almost a year. For a toddler, that's an eternity. It's like your main source of comfort and safety just vanishes. And to understand the impact of that, the book quotes his niece, who happens to be a clinical psychologist. And what she says is pretty chilling. His fears and longings went unsoothed. His mom was gone, and his dad was apparently not the comforting type. So this little kid was left all alone with his fears. The book argues that this is the exact moment his lifelong, desperate search for external validation, that narcissistic supply, was born. So you see the argument the book is making? It's drawing this straight and, frankly, kind of disturbing line from the wounded child to the political powerhouse. The psychological armor he built to survive his childhood, it argues, became the very weapons he uses in the political arena. The patterns just got bigger, but they never really changed. All right, so let's fast forward a bit, because the book argues that this core programming, well, it got some major upgrades from 2 key mentors. And then it was packaged and sold to the world by television. You've got his father, Fred, who basically taught him the world is split in 2, killers and losers. Dominate or be dominated, simple as that. And then you get Roy Cohn, the infamous lawyer who gave him the tactical playbook. Never, ever apologize, never admit you're wrong, and always, always attack. And then, of course, there's The Apprentice. The book basically calls this the ultimate magic trick. It took a guy with a very public record of business failures in bankrupt casinos
and almost overnight turned him into the symbol of success, America's CEO.
So how did that happen? Well, the book argues the real transformation wasn't in some high-stakes boardroom. Nope. It was in the editing room. With some clever editing, dramatic music, and a killer catchphrase, they created a character, a powerful, decisive genius that was way more compelling than the messy reality.
So this brings us to the book's final and honestly pretty chilling conclusion. It ties everything we've talked about together, the early wounds, that rigid operating system, and the myth created by TV. And the result, it claims, is a psychological profile that is completely set in stone.
And really, who better to make this point than the man himself? He's said this kind of thing a lot over the years. The book sees this not as a boast, but as a revealing admission that his personality is essentially frozen in time.
And that's really the core takeaway from the book. If you stop seeing these behaviors as just, character flaws that someone could work on, and instead see them as hardwired features of a permanent operating system, then something amazing happens. They become predictable. The software doesn't change, so the output, it stays the same.
So the book leaves us with this final, really thought-provoking question. Understanding this stuff isn't the same as excusing it, right? But what if it's about something else entirely? What if it's about surviving? The book suggests that maybe, just maybe, being able to anticipate the next move is the most valuable tool we have. It doesn't give us any easy answers, but it definitely gives us a new way to look at things.